Okay, picture it. It's 2006. Ice Age 2 The Meltdown has just released in cinemas. The best-selling album globally is the High School Musical soundtrack. Eminem is 1 year away from nearly overdosing to death, and my parents have broke up for the final time, and this time they mean it. DC has also released a comic called Batman Year 100. I didn't read it because I was 6, so wouldn't have all would have gone over my head. Wouldn't have understood a thing that was going on. In fact, I think at 6, I was struggling to read the Biff, Kip, Chip, and Biffer, or whatever they're called, those books. I want to say Magic Key? I don't know. So, not for me. However, 2026, my parents are still separated, thank God. Eminem's getting angry about American politics. Who's not? Who's not getting angry about American politics? And High School Musical and Ice Age are both prevalent in everyday society. We're all watching and listening to it all the time. And I have now read Batman Year 100. Meh. Meh. Batman Year 100 is a comic written by Paul Pope with Jose Villarrubia, and it features a Batman who, on the front, is very squashed, and then on the inside of the comic, the Batman that it features has got the pursed lips of Val Kilmer. I don't want to spend however long this video is going to be just outwardly shitting on the book, so I'm going to try and... I'll speak fairly candidly about it, but I am going to try and pull some positives out there, things that did stand out to me as things that I like. But first of all, I'm going to speak about the art. So we'll get to some more positives in a little bit. It's not even that the art in this is a problem. The art isn't a problem most of the time. Because of the sketchy and frantic nature of the art inside the book, the moments when the scene is moving quickly and there is peril and there's action going on and things are quite tense, the art's suitable. There's a scene with a fire at the GCPD where I feel like it works, and there's a scene where Batman's getting away on a motorbike where I feel like it fits quite well. But there are other points where there's stillness in the scene, or there's no motion going on in the scene, but because of how jagged and wonky everything looks, it's quite difficult for me to look at. I found it very difficult to understand what was going on scene to scene. I felt like I had to investigate each panel, not because I wanted to see every detail of everything, but because it was quite difficult to really grasp what was happening. There are objects in the book that could have been drawn with a straight line, but it seems like the artist is allergic to straight lines. So it just made it very difficult for me to look at everything. However, the art isn't a major problem, because I flicked to it once I've read the book. At the end, there's a character sheet for the design of Batman that he's got. And it looks great. Like, looking at that was a lot easier than looking at... And it could be influence from the colorist. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but everything felt intense. And when everything's intense, nothing's intense. There's a camping joke somewhere in there. I like the design of this Batman. Like, I like that he's got... Despite the fact that it's 30 years in the future, and I mean, I think actually this book was published in 2006, so it's only 10 years in the future from now. Anyway, the version of Batman that we've got, despite supposedly being 100 years into being Batman, has got quite a rudimentary design, which I think is quite interesting. And I think that's influenced by Batman Year 1. He seems to just have a champion jumper with a bat logo stitched onto the front, tucked into some wrestling shorts with a bat mask and some big camo boots. And I kind of like it. Like, it's interesting to see technology's all moved on, and he still seems to be using this rudimentary suit, and all of the technology that he's got is quite rudimentary. Like, it's not grappling guns or sonar suits. He's got rope and clips and harnesses and stuff. That's what he's working with, and it is fun to see. Like, there's a scene where he's scuttling across in the GCPD fire. There's a scene where he's scuttling across the roof, and it's quite fun how he gets there. But other than that, looking at the art was a little bit difficult. I also really liked that he takes some Dracula fangs and he shoves them in whenever he's trying to be intimidating. Clearly that's something else that people like, because it's taken off. There's issue number 4 of Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder. That version of Batman puts in some Dracula dentures to try and intimidate some gang leaders on top of a block of flats. So it's a good idea, and it's a good idea that's then been replicated. So there are positives within the art and the ideas, but I found it quite difficult to look at all the time. It felt like it didn't hit for me in every moment. Hey, Reese from the future here. I've come to realise that we're all free to change and grow as people, and sometimes opinions that you once held aren't the opinions that you keep forever. I say this because during the editing process of the video that you're currently watching, I've realised that I don't have a problem with the art. I have a problem with the physical copy of the art. The physical copy of the art is doo-doo. It's dog water. It's awful. I don't like it. However, I've discovered that during the editing, I've been pulling the digital images from various sources, all perfectly legal, and I actually don't hate it. For whatever reason, the translation of the art from digital to physical has made it infinitely worse. Very, very difficult to look at. So anything that I've said already and any criticisms that I have for the rest of the video about the art, largely not my opinion anymore. Some of it I stand by, some of the allergies to straight lines I'm sticking with, but a lot of the thoughts that I've had about the art in general aren't the way that I'm traveling anymore. That's not the road that I'm on. So I'm here now, and editor Reese from the future will probably also appear in the ending to the video, because I remember when I originally recorded this, I did double down quite hard on my opinion of the art. So we're going to re-record that with this new opinion in mind, this new thought in mind, okay? So keep watching the video and I'll see you in a little bit. Bye-bye. Bye. I think that the story was passable for an action/detective story. It hit those beats okay. And I did have enough investment in the detective story to be like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. Pacing was a little bit off. Maybe my attention span's fucked. I don't know. I would find myself sometimes in the dialogue-heavy sections of the book going, can we hurry this along and get to the action? And then sometimes the action would go on for so long that I'd be like, all right, there's no real... I want more substance coming through. Can we get a little bit more... can we get a little bit more dialogue? I also felt a little bit odd that it doesn't really have chapters. It's just one long story. And maybe the pacing was off because I was stopping it at points that it wasn't suitable to stop at. I do feel like having the main villain of the story being federal agents acting on behalf of a government institution is something that is very impactful in 2026, despite this book being published 2 decades earlier. And I have to hit the obligatory fuck ice. There is a standout moment for me. Oh, why not clap it? There's a standout moment for me in the book with a character called Romeo who has got latent clinical hypersensitive persuasive abilities. Essentially, he is Wolverine's wife in X-Men Origins Wolverine, but without the need for physical connection. As he says things, you commit those actions. Anyway, so he's got these powers, and there's a scene where Batman's escaping a fire from the GCPD with a vial of his own blood that they were going to test to find out who Batman is really. And the guy yells for Batman to stop, and he's on a fire escape, and he does. He physically can't move, and he catches up, this Romeo guy catches up to Batman, and he's like, tell me who you are. And Batman's obviously trying to fight it, and he stutters and he splurts, and he gets out like a... he does the Adam Sandler, the baby who talks bit, where he's like, and he's like, it's on the tip of your tongue, tell me who you are. And then he hits him with the classic, I am Batman! Oh, as much as this story didn't always captivate me, peak Batman moment. That is a peak Batman moment. I believe this is either at the same time or just a little bit after, so it could be an instance of simultaneous thought. There's an episode of Batman Beyond where Bruce Wayne's hearing voices, and he comes to the conclusion that it couldn't possibly be him because the voice that he's hearing calls him Bruce. And he says to Terry at the end of the story, he's like, well, I knew it wasn't me hallucinating because I don't call myself that in my mind. And Terry's like, what do you mean? What do you call yourself? And then he comes, obviously, to the realization that he is Batman. And I think he says something like, that's my name now. You can share the name, but he's Batman. Let's be real, he's Batman. This comic does do something that I don't really love, that modern comics don't do, and that is the modern way of having a character with an accent or translated from a different language is you have a greater than and a less than sign at either end of the speaking paragraph, or you've got an asterisk at the end, and then at the bottom corner you've got translated from X language or in X accent. But I think maybe this was just at the time where instead of doing that, if you had a character with an accent, you would spell out phonetically the words that the character would pronounce differently. So you would spell out how they speak. And this is an issue that I've got because I'm putting it down to the fact that I'm profoundly dyslexic. And I struggle to read regular books, non-picture books, picture books, I struggle to read them because I find that I either spend too much time making sure that I've read the words correctly, that I don't understand what's being said. I don't soak in the message of the book or what the paragraphs say. I just make sure I've read the words correctly, or I focus really hard on making sure that I've soaked in the message that I've then realized I've read loads of the words incorrectly, and then it doesn't make sense anyway. So comic books, sort of with 50% of the medium being imagery, takes off some of that burden for me. But then you add a little bit more of that burden back in if you spell things phonetically. And I know that this isn't going to be a problem that most people have. This won't translate to most people. Stop it. It won't translate to most people. It's going to be the kind of issue that I have, and maybe like a handful of other people, but I just find it so much more difficult to read when that is the case. So, I've spent this entire story giving myself like a little pep talk every time I've picked it up to go and read it, just so that I can get through it, just to be like, listen, finish reading this and then you can put it on your shelves and you never have to think of it ever again. Which one is a sign that this has not been great. This hasn't been, like, I'm not chomping at the bit to pick this up, get through it, and be like, wow, this is amazing. I'm reading it specifically so I can put it on the shelf because I don't want to put anything on there that hasn't been completed. And then, when I finished it, I've gotten to another smaller story right at the end. This is the Russian nesting dolls of comic books. I've got to a smaller story right at the end called The Batman of Berlin. And this is where everything got so much worse for me. The story was released in the late 90s, I want to say 98, 99. It's a version of Batman set in 1939 in Germany, where this version of Batman is fighting against Nazis. That's good. Once again, obligatory. Fuck Nazis. It's a version of Batman who's fighting Nazis, which is good. G.I. Robot approved. However, the story does have one big final shit in the bed that I don't like. I've really struggled to get through this whole thing. I've read this additional story, and I'm going to read it so I make sure I've gotten it correct. The second to last panel before one big splash page, he says, he was against socialism in all its many forms. He was an advocate of individual liberty, free speech, and free thinking, and so, should I add, was the Berlin Batman. I don't think I need to tell you that if you are protesting Nazis, one, good, two, the Nazis famously weren't socialists. They were fascists. You cannot be a fascist and a socialist. Those two things don't work together. The Nazis lied about being a socialist party. They weren't for the people, they were for some people. Fucking outrageous. It just, something that was so difficult for me to get through, and then right at the end left such a sour taste for me. It's really tainted the rest of the book. And maybe I'm just a woke soy boy and I can't get past my political beliefs enough to enjoy some... Can't we leave politics out of this? Unfortunately not, because all art is political. But specifically, when you're talking about politics, it's political. Yeah, just ruined it for me right at the end. Ruined a bad thing for me right at the end. Didn't love it. It's going to go on the shelf still, and maybe in a few years' time, I'll reread it and have a different appreciation for it. I think this take that Batman's like this super capitalist that just beats up the mentally ill is so derivative and wrong. God. Didn't love it. Ruined it for me. Ruined a bad thing for me. Yeah! Hi. Editor Reese from the future here. You may remember me from earlier in the video. I'm just here to help conclude the video in a little bit more of a toned down manner than we had before. I'd like to say that the art in this comic isn't half bad, especially if you get a digital copy. It's one of the rare instances where I would recommend getting a digital over a physical copy of a comic book. It just looks so much cleaner. The lines are a little bit more refined and the colour seems a little bit more vibrant. The story wasn't half bad. The story was pretty good. And it's fucking lame to make assessments about the Nazis that were incorrect, especially associated to their political ideology, because those guys are fucking cunts. And anybody who currently walks around saying they agree with any of the policies that those absolute fascist pricks had, they can go fuck themselves as well. If you've stayed this far into the video, one, congratulations and thank you very much for completing it. It's a terrible time for me because I believe this is the same week that Harry Hill and Tim Vine both seem to have found the internet, and the Venn diagram of our audience is a complete circle. So it's a miracle that you've even come here. And to anybody who hasn't made it this far into the video, I knew you wouldn't, because you're a coward and you're weak. I hope you so really appreciate everybody for sticking with this. Give me more engagement. Do it. Give me more engagement, please. I think even Editor Reese has still got a little bit like a little goblin man who lives inside his chest that pulls all the levers. Just give me things. Give me things and let me do this as a career instead of let me do this. Give me money for this.